Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own Fireside Take Two or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by Gesshoo, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Britt. Fireside Take Two. Chapter 1. Fashionably Late. The sky hangs like a dusty black curtain over their heads. The air is cold and thin, turning a soft winter rain into icy needles, pelting at the cheeks of the highly inebriated bellwether unit. Struggling to stay upright in the whipping wind, they race toward the rarely used matriarch hall on the edge of base, the place where the Yule Ball had been rescheduled after an accident blew a Buick-sized hole through the northern hall of the grand banquet hall. The vicious and unending sleet thankfully dissipates the instant it impacts the iridescent barrier hallowing around the open entrance of Matriarch, and Tally, Abigail, and Riel each breathe a sigh of relief as the warmth of the fires inside rapidly embrace them. "We are so late," Tally says, panting. Riel shivers beside her. "We are so cold." "We're fashionably late," Abigail says. And Riel nods and shuffles closer to her, trying to get warm. "We're fashionably cold," she mutters, and Abigail laughs. She's the first to fully regain her breath and quickly sings a series of seeds to warm and dry them. "There," she says, satisfied. "Better?" As Riel's hair unsticks from her head and warmth spills a bit of pink back into her cheeks, she looks at Abigail as if the girl had hung the moon for her. She strokes her fingertips dramatically down Abigail's cheeks. "I could kiss you," she whispers, and Abigail snorts and shoves her hand away. "You did once," she reminds her. "And you remember." Riel waggles her eyebrows. "Made an impression then, huh?" "Yes, you impressed upon me just how very messy you are when you're wasted, caller," Abigail says, and slips a hand into each of her sisters. They're dressed to the nines, Abigail in her signature Yule tiara with a mint green, belted twill blazer over only her own smooth skin, the twill pants to match, and razor-sharp silver heels. Riel, her longer hair secured in a single elegant braid, sports a walnut slouch suit with a holly red wingtip Oxfords and a matching red turtleneck. And Tally, with a smile to match its shine, wears a metallic copper v-neck gown with a high side slit and a beaded waist, strappy copper heels, and golden leaf florals woven throughout her loose, wavy hair. "You kissed Tally that same day." "I did?" "You did," Tally confirms with a giggle. "It was so messy, Ray." Riel squeezes their hands as Abigail pulls her and Tally along a corridor toward the boisterous sounds ahead. "Listen, Berryessa's Beltane punch is powerful shit." "It was 8 a.m, Abigail says. "You literally woke us up with sloppy mouth kisses, and said you could pencil us in for an appointment with the bone doctor if we wanted," Tally adds. And Riel's cheeks burn like fire. So does her laugh, bright and crackling, delighted. "And when Abby told you to fuck off, you said you would just celebrate the horny days alone and left." "Horny days?" Abigail wheezes. "Oh, goddess, I forgot about that part." She drags them down another corridor toward the large open double doors at its end, an enormous bouquet of mistletoe hanging over its mouth. "And then, remember, we couldn't find her for hours?" "We didn't even find her," Tally says. "Isadora found her flirting with the mycelium." "She's really very sweet when she wants to be," Riel says with a grin. "She even uses her little mushroom tendrils to play with my hair sometimes." Abigail's laugh booms beautifully as they finally reach the ball. She stops the group right inside the door's frame, releases their hands to wrap an arm around each of their backs instead. "Mistletoe, my loves," she announces. And Tally and Raelle each smack a loud, hard kiss to Abigail's cheeks. "Now, does anybody see my man?" "There he is," Raelle says, pointing toward the feasting tables. "Damn," Abigail laughs. "How did you find him so fast?" Raelle shrugs. "Easy. I just look for a scarf. Like, dude even has formal scarves for fancy events." "I like to leave marks," Abigail says with a smirk, pulling a laugh from them both. "Finally!" Gregorio appears before them as if summoned. "You guys realize this party started like 2 hours ago, right?" "Relax, Gigi," Abigail says, her voice carrying only the slightest slur. "The party starts when I decide it starts." She pulls a folded pair of sunglasses from her cleavage and steps towards him. Slowly, she opens the sunglasses, wipes the lenses on the long, black lapel of Gregorio's maroon suit, then slides the glasses onto her face. Then, with a click of her tongue, and it starts now. She saunters past, leaving Gregorio gaping, Raelle frowning, and Tally giggling like a little girl. Did she just... He glances down at his lapel and blankly up at Raelle. "Pull a pair of sunglasses from her tits and clean them on your suit?" Raelle asks, brow still deeply furrowed. "It would appear she did, Jeej." "It would appear she did." Tally snorts, then giggles even harder, and Raelle turns toward her. Was she seriously just keeping a pair of sunglasses between her boobs, though? Like, how is that comfortable? And like, why? The more pronounced Raelle's frown becomes, the harder Tally laughs until it is utterly infectious. And Gregorio can't help but join in. But seriously, the sun's been down for hours, you guys. "Are you all drunk?" Gregorio asks. "Is that why you're late? Were you pre-gaming?" Tally's dimples drop like sinkholes, and she is pure, copperly sunshine in her falsely innocent smile. "Of course not." Gregorio pouts. "And you didn't invite me?" "Aw, Jeej." Raelle reaches out and pats his shoulder. "It was a very last-minute decision." "Discovery," Tally interjects, and Raelle nods. "Yes, yeah, discovery," Raelle laughs, hiccups, then laughs even harder. "A very last-minute rediscovery of a bottle of rum under Abigail's bed." "From her dad," Tally adds, and Raelle nods quickly again, thankful for the assist. "From her dad, right," she says. "From one of her dads. One of her many, many dads." "Daddies." Raelle wrinkles her nose. "Ew, Tell, no." Gregorio chuckles. "You two are seriously blasted." "Jeej, come here." Raelle waves him closer. "Come here, my guy." When he steps into the doorframe, they still pointlessly occupy. She quickly plants a kiss on his cheek. "There. Does that help?" "I mean, it was a little wet," Gregorio says, and Tally cackles. "They always are with Ray," she says, then grabs his hand and waves for him to grab Raelle's. She tugs them into the smaller but still splendidly decorated hall, drawn toward the energy of the crowded dance floor. "Let's dance." "Don't you want to find your girlfriend?" Raelle shouts over the music as they melt into the sway of bodies, but Tally shakes her head. "Nope." She wears a mischievous smile as she wedges her body between Raelle's and Gregorio's, and lets the live band's beat fill her, head to toe. "I want her to find me." The moment they'd stepped into the elaborately decorated hall, she had sensed Sarah. Tally was drunk. Tipsy. Yes, tipsy was more accurate. But Sarah's work was potent. It couldn't be hidden from a knower, at least not one with Tally's natural ability. She'd first sensed it at the feasting tables, where Abigail disappeared to when she sauntered off. But the aura of it was light and mitigated. The biddies. Tally's gaze found them each picking out food and drink, stuffing their happy old faces. As always, Sarah's signature blurred around them like a watercolored halo, naturally seeping through the ghostly white of the binding work that made them what they were. And then, there she was. Tally had grinned, unable to contain it, the second she found Sarah. The woman was hovering at the back of the hall, slightly hidden by the massive Yule tree in the center of the room. She was stunning, as usual, in a three-piece stone-gray tuxedo and shirt with a silky azure bow tie, sleek, shiny gray leather boots, and sapphire earrings that sparkled under the lights strung about the room. Her hair was pulled back in an intricate triple braid, making her dark eyeshadow and bright blue eyes more striking, and Tally's mouth watered at the sight. What drew her attention even more, though, was the fact that Sarah was cloaked in swirling dark swathes of her work, and Tally knew from the shade of it that Sarah was concealing herself. She was invisible. Tally could see her as clear as day, but no one else could. Tally fought the urge to roll her eyes. Of course, Sarah was using the work again. It had taken Abigail nearly 2 months to convince Adil to teach her the cloaking seed, which she then promptly shared with her sisters despite promising she wouldn't. And Tally had turned right around and taught it to Sarah, despite promising she wouldn't. Oops. And boy, had Sarah been excited. And ever since, an unholy nightmare of invisible tricks and pranks, much to the biddies' dismay. Tally had watched as Sarah crept around the back of the ballroom, an amused smile tugging at one corner of her mouth. Unseen, she tapped people's shoulders, making them turn, confused, only to find no one there. She took a cupcake right out of a first year's hand and snickered when the young witch stared, wide-eyed and wonderstruck, as the cupcake floated away on the air. She dusted glitter of a tabletop and randomly threw it at people walking by her, delighting in their bewildered glitter-covered faces, glancing rapidly around for answers they wouldn't find. She tickled herself to the point of having to bend over and clasp her knees when she stuck out a foot and tripped Petra Bellwether on her way to meet Abigail at the feasting tables. Petra, in her sleek Aline Grimson gown, had stumbled forward like a shocked cartoon character, but somehow managed to regain her balance before falling. She'd spun to glare at the empty space she tripped over, as if prepared to summon a storm if need be. Her keen eyes had scanned and scanned, brow furrowed in confusion, lips snarled in annoyance, and Sarah had had to clap a hand over her mouth to hold her laugh in. Tally had shaken her head, laughed out loud because her girlfriend couldn't, and pulled her friends towards the dance floor. If Sarah wanted to haunt the Yule Ball like an ornery, invisible Krampus, playing tricks on everyone, Tally wouldn't take that joy from her. It was a Sabbath, after all. In fact, Tally would revel in it too. She knew it was only a matter of time before Sarah found her. They were drawn to each other, even more so since they'd finally given in to their feelings, and that connection, it pulled them together, like a tether strained to its end and snapping back. They always found each other. Tally is starting to sweat by the time she feels Sarah move closer to her. They're a couple songs in, dancing as if it's the last chance they'll ever have to move their bodies, and Raelle is swinging and spinning her like a rag doll. Tally senses Sarah's work like a flood, spilling in from behind. Then there are her hands on her waist, a seed humming low at the edge of her ear, and then Tally too is invisible, drawn back into Sarah's chest, Sarah's arms wrapping tightly around her, and Sarah's work masking her from view. Tally nearly laughs out loud when Raelle's jaw suddenly drops, and her blonde brows dip down. Her lips tug into a frown, then wordlessly open and close for a moment, then, "Tal?" It's weak and confused and barely audible over the music, and Tally can't help herself. She laughs, loudly, and Raelle's brows shoot up. "Tally? What the hell?" She reaches out, but Sarah pulls Tally back just enough to keep her from Raelle's touch. She snickers at the back of Tally's ear. "Shh," she whispers. But Tally laughs again anyway, then laughs even harder when Raelle's wide eyes somehow widen further. "What in the gay goddess is happening right now?" Raelle shouts. But then Gregorio is grabbing her up like she weighs nothing and spinning her around to a new beat, and Sarah's pulling Tally away, weaving through the dance floor, uncaring who she bumps into. Tally giggles every step of the way as she clutches Sarah's hand and lets herself be tugged along. When they reach the back of the hall where Tally had first spotted Sarah mid-shenanigan, Sarah eases up a back door and pulls Tally through it. The second it closes behind them, Sarah presses Tally's back to the thick, cold metal and kisses her breathless. "You're awful," Tally laughs. "You know that?" Sarah grins at her, nose wrinkling with her joy, and brushes errant hair from Tally's face. I am aware, yes. She nuzzles her nose against Tally's and kisses her again. You know, I wouldn't be if it wasn't so amusing. Tally smooths her hand over the sleeves of Sarah's tux, then down Sarah's chest and abdomen. You look incredible. As do you, my love, Sarah says, and her hands are straying, wandering, wanting. Tally feels it in the kneading pressure of Sarah's fingertips, a telltale sign of her desire. After last year's Yule revelations, and nearly a year together, Tally had learned and knew all Sarah's tells by heart, especially those that pertained to Tally, the ones that landed her in Sarah's bed, under Sarah's molten mouth, or pressed over Sarah's desk with fingers dipping into wet warmth and teeth nipping at the flushed skin. She knew all the ways Sarah wanted her and how she communicated the want, most often without words. And every time, Tally was wrecked. In seconds, she was debris in the wake of Sarah's love and Sarah's lusts and Sarah's absolute need of her. She was breathless every time, shocked and awestruck and grateful. Sarah's hand found its way to Tally's thigh, exposed by the high slit of her dress, and slipped under. Goddess, she breathed against Tally's lips. You are a tease, Craven. Tally giggles again, and Sarah presses the tip of her nose into one of her dimples, then kisses it. It isn't a tease, Sarah, Tally tells her. It's easy access. For you. Sarah's blue eyes are indigo in the shadowy corridor, and an almost predatory smile stretches her lips. Well, if I wasn't already certain you loved me, I would be now. Is there somewhere we can go? We came here, Sarah says into the hot little kisses she trails down Tally's neck. Yes, Tally says, but I don't want to come here. Anyone could walk out here. Sarah chuckles. They will see nothing, she assures, and draws a garbled sound from Tally's throat when she slides her hand further under her dress and cups her fully over her thin underwear. Sarah. Sarah rasps another unfairly sexy laugh and pulls back. Very well then, she says, and takes Tally's hands. Come with me. Have you been enjoying your little Yule pranks? Tally asks, as they make quick work of the corridor and turn onto another. Sarah stops for a second and looks back at her, surprised. You knew? Tally giggles adorably and points to herself. Know her. A sly and somehow still adoring smile works over Sarah's lips. Did you see me trip Petra? Of course, Tally says. I should have known better than to teach you that seed. You've been drunk on the power of invisibility for months. And you are simply drunk, Sarah says, and Tally cackles. Only a little, she promises, and I still have all my faculties. She quickly halts them again. Watch! She holds her arms out and takes turns drawing her index finger from out of her sides to the tip of her nose and back. See? Totally fine. Sarah snorts. Is that your test for sobriety? Try something harder. Like? The seed of obscurity. What? Tally smacks Sarah's shoulder as the woman laughs. You know I just learned that one, and it is hard. Like, super hard. Yes, but you are a very talented witch, Tally, Sarah says. Unless, of course, you are too drunk. In which case, we will have to suspend our plans for further. Her gaze drops down the length of Tally and back up, searing. Tally's clit throbs at the intent in Sarah's eyes. Activities. Immediately, Tally drops her mouth open and sings. The seed is pitchy at first, but then she closes her eyes and focuses. The haze in her mind clears, and the seed warbles from her throat, deep and resonant. When she opens her eyes again, Sarah has little more than a proud smile in the dark. The entire corridor had been successfully obscured by shadow. A second later, Sarah is on her, pressing that pride into Tally's mouth. She kisses Tally as she always does, with every ounce of herself, withholding nothing, taking everything. And when she pulls back again, Tally is panting and clutching at Sarah's arms like she might float away if she doesn't properly anchor herself. Wherever you're taking us, Tally rasps, a moan woven through the words. We need to be there like yesterday. Sarah all but kicks open the first door they come to, but stops when they find nothing but a small, dark, dusty broom closet. Absolutely not, she says, pulling Tally away from it. This suit was far too expensive to be defiled in a broom closet. She looks back at Tally, who's laughing brightly again. And you, my darling, are far too beautiful. Tally melts, brings a hand up to cup Sarah's cheek. Goddess, I love you. Don't tell me, Sarah says as she leads Tally further down the corridor. She throws open another door to find an old classroom. It's mostly clean, but for the scent of dust in the air. Moonlight spills through a large rain-speckled window on the far side of the room, casting an eternal glow about the otherwise dark space. It's perfect. Sarah sweeps Tally up into her arms, bridal style, and carries her quickly inside. Show me. A half hour later, Tally and Sarah slip quietly back into the ball. Tally a little disheveled, and Sarah unfairly pristine as always. They're visible now, Sarah having had her fun for the night. And Sarah gives Tally's hand one last gentle squeeze before bidding her a good night and strolling off to find her biddies. Tally is barely 3 steps onto the mostly empty dance floor when she's yanked to Abigail's and Rael's sides and pinned with stares so knowing they could rival her own nature. "Hey, best friends," Tally says with a giggle and a grin, not even the slightest bit ashamed. "Where'd everybody go?" "To the gazebos for Fireside," Abigail tells her. "You know, where we would be right now if we didn't have to wait for you to finish screwing the general." She drops her voice to a deadpan whisper on the last few words, and Rael snickers. "She was screwing me, actually," Tally says, and Rael's quiet laugh booms as she holds up a hand to give Tally 5. Abigail rolls her eyes. "Girl?" "As if you wouldn't have run off to do the same with Adil if it weren't for him bringing Kalita this year," Rael says, and Abigail's annoyed expression tweaks with mirth. "Fine," she says, and shoves Rael's shoulders. Then tallies. Then draws them back in and loops an arm around each of theirs. "Come on. M's going to kill us if we don't get our asses outside." The gazebo is blessedly cozy, but Abigail still sings her chorus of seeds again to warm and dry them from the wet walk over. It was only misting out now, but the walk had been long enough to douse their clothes. M, seated beside Gregorio and dressed in a black and blue tartan kilt with a blue silk shirt, stares them down as they each drop onto their assigned cushions around the fire. Tally bites her lip through a smile as she settles down and feels the stickiness of her panties. Heat flares anew in her belly, and she fans her face. Goddess, it was good to be in love. "Sorry," she mutters as M glares. "We lost track of time." But then M's sharp glare levels, and the smile stretches their lips. "I'm fucking with you," they say. "I actually just got here." They smack Gregorio's shoulder. "Jeej was here before me." Gregorio jerks awake from where he'd been leaning on his hand, hunkered over and dozing. "Seriously?" he says through a yawn. "It's about time." Abigail rolls her eyes. "It's like 9:30, she says. "Get it together, Gigi." Rael wraps her arm around Gregorio's back and laughs as he dramatically lays his head on her shoulder and sighs. "Aw, Abs, don't tease my guy," she says. "He can't help that he's a sad, sleepy old man." "So, we think the general's coming tonight?" Gregorio asks as he stretches his arms up over his head and yawns again. He picks up one of the goblets laid out for them and fills it with wine. He passes it to Rael, then fills up another for Tally. "I'm thinking she done already did, honey," Abigail says under her breath, and Tally screams. She grabs one of the extra cushions behind her and chucks it at Abigail's head. Her sister only ducks to avoid it and laughs. "Do not catch the cushions on fire, Tally," Abigail says. "Your girlfriend will need somewhere to sit." "Maybe that's her plan," Rael teases. "Burn up all the extra cushions so someone will have to sit in her lap." "Well, it wouldn't be Sarah," Tally says with a laugh. It was nice to be able to joke with her unit, with her coven, about her relationship. They'd kept it a secret for some time, but eventually Sarah had grown tired of concealing it and drew up the proper paperwork so they could be open. Tally had felt like she was on cloud 9 the first time she got to call the general her girlfriend in front of the others. Sarah, on the other hand, had looked like she'd just descended into the seventh circle of hell. She hated the term girlfriend. Lucy would shove her into the fire just to beat her to it. No way the woman is going to sit on this hardwood floor without a cushion. "Aw," Raelle says, handing out her goblet for Gregorio to refill. Too drunk and delighted to care that she should probably slow down. "I kinda want a sweet little biddy to sit on my lap now." "Weird kink, but okay," Abigail says into a sip of wine, and Raelle wheezes. "Shut up." "That reminds me," Em says. "My girlfriend." "Pia?" Abigail drones, and the others laugh. "You can just call her Pia, Em. We all know her, and we all know she's your girlfriend." Em chuckles and takes a drink. "My girlfriend asked me the other day to learn to play the saxophone because she thinks jazz music is sexy." "Couldn't you just use Spotify for that?" Gregorio asks, and Raelle erupts into a fresh peal of drunken laughter. "Exactly!" Em shouts, pointing at him. "Thank you! When I want to try new things for sex purposes, it's like, 'Babe, can we try doing butt stuff?'" They barely get through the words without laughing, because Raelle is wheezing so hard that Gregorio has to physically hold her up. But Pia's all like, "Babe, can you learn a whole new skill for me?" Tally snorts into her goblet, nearly inhaling the wine. She takes a long drink and smiles as it burns and bubbles in her belly. They have a long night ahead of them yet, and several nights more of Fireside to come, but she knows that no matter how long it drags on, she will enjoy every second of it, with these people, her hilarious, wonderful people. That's what Fireside is about, after all, she knows. Connection. She can't wait for Sarah and the biddies to join, whenever that will be, and Akostia too, if they're lucky. Then, the circle will feel truly complete. Her people, her most precious connections, her family. The joy floods from within, and Tally can't help herself. She raises her goblet and shouts, "Happy Yule, witches!" And it isn't only Sekhmet that answers. All the covens surrounding them, every witch in every gazebo, cheer and roar their heady holiday bliss into the cold night air. Tally swears the sky clears. She swears the Sabbath is in her blood. Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.